Well, welcome to Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course is Think Again Christian Facts, fact checking. And today's slide or today's lesson is follow the science. Well, meteorologists can't even predict today's weather. And so that's our big question for today. We have weather forecasters, and this is one of my favorite. I'm from the Los Angeles area, and this guy's name is Dallas Rains. I love it. The other guy is Johnny Mountain, right? What great names. Dallas Rains and Johnny Mountain, and they're the ones who give us the weather. But here's the problem. I've been listening to weather forecasts for years as a baseball player. It was pretty important in California to know whether or not it was going to rain. It was pretty important to know whether or not it was going to be 115 degrees in the shade, right? And so I always wanted to know how hot, or if it was raining here in Washington, the Seattle area. It's kind of how much is it going to rain? You know it's going to rain, but is it going to be a long time, all day, little sporadic? And so here's the thing. I've been following long enough to know that I can't trust the meteorologists. I can't trust the prediction of the weather for tomorrow. But here's the $1,000,000 question. If weather scientists, and they are scientists, right? They go to school, they have degrees, they're considered a part of the scientific family. If they can't predict tomorrow's weather at 100% accuracy, then it's amazing how they think they can tell us by blind faith that there's going to be a global, a global climate warming, catastrophic end of the world. Now, this is what they're telling us in movies and TVs, in schools, politicians. The assumption is that this is just an absolute fact that, in 12 years, the earth is going to destroy itself because of climate change. Well, I have some questions. My question I begin with is, well, first of all, can I trust science? I mean, really? Has science ever been wrong? Has science ever been proven wrong? It's proven wrong all the time. A part of science that scientists will brag about is the process it's always evolving, it's always changing, it's always growing, it's developing. That's one way of saying it was wrong, and now they've made corrections and found their errors and mistakes, and now it's more accurate. Of course, time is the vindicator of truth. 10 years later, they realized they were wrong again. Science books are constantly being rewritten. Why? Because they're constantly wrong. They make a hypothesis and assumptions, and they're proven wrong. Well, when we're talking about something like the end of the world, I think we should have a little bit more accuracy, a little bit more confidence before I change my whole life and world for something that's just a fable or something that's faith. So if science is wrong, and then is it something I can trust? Is it something I can trust? Are there enough good scientific predictors that would give me that great confidence? Do you realize that the end of the world's scientific projections, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I mean, this stuff started a long time ago. The Great Cycle, the Mayans had a prediction of an apocalypse that was going to come because another planet was going to collide. And this is, you're going to hear these things, you're going to think, wait, I saw that movie. Where do you think these movies get their ideas from? But in the Mayan apocalypse, the doomsday was the Earth was going to collide with another planet. Halley's Comet, 1910, there was a prediction that the next time Halley's Comet came, that it was going to crash into the Earth and destroy the Earth in about 1986. Well, I was alive. I was in high school at that time. Didn't happen. In 1524, there's a German mathematician, astrologer. He predicted a worldwide flood. That never happened. And so scientific catastrophic dystopian end of the world predictions are really nothing new. So why do we keep falling for them? Well, before we get to that, I want us to kind of get our bearings straight again biblically. What does the Bible have to say about following science as empirical, 100% reliable truth versus following God? What does the Bible say about the end of the world, the end of the earth? Well, I think we have to ask ourselves, well, who's in charge of the earth? Who made the earth? Well, in Genesis 1:1, we see that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It was God who made the earth. It's God's earth. That's the foundational premise of Christianity, is who is God? God is the creator of this universe. He's the creator of this earth. He's the creator of you, and he's the creator of me. He's the creator. That puts him in charge. Romans 9 says he is the potter. We're just clay. We're just clay. We're made by him. And that's why it's so important that you understand. That's why the debate and the battle over this following the science really does become a religious battle. Because by faith, people are following science, a blind science that they can't see. Why? Because they don't want to trust and rely on God. It's God who upholds the universe, says Hebrews 1:3. Genesis 9. In Genesis 9, it's after the flood, the great flood. It's after Noah and the ark. And God makes a covenant promise to Noah and a covenant promise to us that he's never going to destroy the earth again by flood. And he gives us a seal and a sign of that promise. It's the rainbow. And so we have seen that God is the one who says, look, I am in charge of the earth. I uphold it. Not man, not your spray can, not your automobile. No, it's God who is ultimately in charge and in control. And before we move any forward, I want you to understand this. I want us to then now as we move towards kind of the logic train of our fact checking, which is if climate has continued to change, ice age, warm periods of time, more ice caps on the North Pole, now on the South Pole, it changes. Do we see a consistency in the inconsistency of weather? Yes, we do. It shouldn't surprise us. It shouldn't shock us that we see different trajectories taking place and then changing. And so if you're a real scientist, if you're a real student of science, you would realize, well, nothing really continues in the same path. It seems as though right when a scientist thinks they have things under control is right about when they change. And of course, when this group of scientists makes all their predictions and their hypothesis, well, they die first before their predictions either come to pass or don't come to pass. So there's no real accountability either. Well, the first question we want to ask and the first premise is, look, are we going to follow the science of meteorologists when they can't even predict tomorrow? Well, when you do some research, when we do some fact checking, hey, they're actually 80 to 90% right. And that's not too bad. 90% accurate. I'll give them the 90%. 90% accurate on how the weather is going to be tomorrow. That's not too bad. But it's not 100%. And if you're telling me that the end of the world is coming, I would like it to be better than 80, 90%. Now, what gets even worse is, well, if it goes to a 7-day forecast, it actually starts dipping down real quick. If you get to like 10 to 14, they're 50-50. Heck, I could be a weather forecaster with those numbers, right? If it's 50-50, I could just say, hey, look, you know what in 2 weeks the weather's going to be? I'll flip a coin. All right, 50-50, heads or tails. Do you want to base your life, base your confidence on a 50-50 on whether or not climate change it really has a catastrophic end of the world result? That's something to think about. Well, the other thing we want to understand is we keep hearing this 12-year countdown, 12-year countdown, 12-year countdown. Well, let's keep that accountable, first of all. Let's keep these people accountable. You know, the Bible says that if a prophet makes a prediction and that prediction isn't kept, well, then he should be stoned as a false prophet. Think about that. So if our scientists were held to the same standard, maybe they wouldn't be so cavalier. And so the world put us on notice October 8th, 2018, and said, look, if we don't change our ways, then we have a 12-year countdown. Well, let's keep track because 2 years have gone by now, okay? So it's not 12 anymore. Last year we got rebuked by Greta, by a 16-year-old girl rebuked us about destroying the earth. How dare we, right? And again, she stated the 12 years. Well, Greta, we're at 11 now, and now we're at 10. So we've got 10 years, and I want you to keep that in the back of your cap for a second. Well, one of the things you should know, and as we study, and I mentioned that the only really predictable, accurate science that we've seen with weather has been the change. When I grew up in the 70s, the big fear was global cooling. That's right, global cooling. When I was growing up, they said there was an ice age on the horizon. An ice age was coming. Well, that quickly changed to, well, no, okay, we're gonna change our minds. Now it's the dangers of global warming. Maybe you've heard that term, that there's a shift, and so it's gonna get warmer, right? Well, you even see claims like, well, this was in 2020, okay, 2020, the warmest year on record. What does that prove? That proves global warming. Remember, we don't just count one spike, right? We have to take a look at all the evidence. I want you to understand what we're dealing with here. When we do our research and we say, okay, so let's take a look at the warmth, the heat, and we just do an easy Google search. And I know Google's not 100% accurate, but what we do is we go back and we look at the articles and we read them. So the question was, has the Earth ever been hotter than now? Look at this answer that we get. Between 53 and 49 million years ago, the Earth's warmest temperature for 100 million years was back then, 50 million years ago. What? First of all, you're contradicting your 2020, this was the warmest year ever. And now you're telling me, well, but 50 million years ago, who kept track of that? Where is that written down? Were you there, as Ken has said? Were you there? I mean, I would love to be able to make statements and just, well, 100 million years ago, this is what happened. Who can check me? Who can fact check me? Where do they even come up with this stuff? I want you to learn to be good listeners. That's why the whole course of think again, think through it, process it, be a good Berean, see if it is so. Be a good Berean, study, fact check it, check the facts, process them, right? Because you're given a lot of wrong information. You have to think through it. And so when you see something like, wait a minute, they're telling me that in 12 years, we're going to have, well, it's not cooling anymore and it's not warming. You know what? We're going to cover both sides and say, it'll just change. I love that. We don't know if it's going to get hot or cold. All I know is it's going to change and we're all going to die. That's quite a prediction, right? And you watch your news person and you realize, wait, they can't even predict tomorrow's weather. I like on my phone app where, you look on your phone to see, the hourly, and sometimes you're looking on there, it says clear, and you look outside and it's raining. It's like, okay, that's what we're dealing with here. That's our data. Well, one of the main reasons why we're in such hysterics regarding climate change is there was a documentary that came out from the former Vice President Al Gore, and he actually won a Academy Award for it. And that's a very sad thing because, first of all, he's not a scientist, and second of all, many of his predictions have not come true. Ironically, the title of his documentary is Inconvenient Truth, and the inconvenient truth is that his predictions of catastrophe have failed. Here's some of his predictions when he made them in 2006, right? Some of his predictions were that the polar bears were going to be extinct, that Kilimanjaro was no longer going to have ice caps, that Florida was going to sink into the ocean. I'm not making this up. And that greenhouse gases were going to destroy us in 10 years. Well, 2016 came, the doomsday clock expired, we were all still here. And now they're regurgitating, they're resetting the clock to say, okay, do over 12 years, 12 years. Romans 1 says, you know what? The creation, when you look outside and you see the sun, when you see a mountain, when you see the rivers, when you see life, plant life, when you see animal life, God's glorious creation is clearly seen. Clearly. It's self-evident. You know. To deny that is to deny God. And professing to be wise, people become fools. Professing to be wise, scientists with degrees called doctors, right? Professing to be wise, they will chase after foolish predictions. They will swing from warming to cooling to, I don't know, changing. Professing to be wise, they become fools. And so, the science argument really is an argument of faith. Let's just be honest. It's an argument of faith. The theory of evolution, not the fact. It's a theory of evolution. And the whole goal is it's a God replacement. We're replacing our confidence in the Lord God Almighty and placing it into the hands of conjecture, the hands of theories of science, theory of evolution, theory of catastrophic. And so they worship the earth, they worship science, and they reject clear evidence of God's design. And they do that even though they can't predict tomorrow's rain. Think again, Christian.